This past Shabbat and leading into early this week was the International Chabad Rabbis Conference. It was very different than previous years. The first time in over 35 years where the conference was not held in person. Obviously, people couldn't travel due to the pandemic, but it was hosted virtually. And typically, one of the hallmarks of the shluchim, the international conference, is a massive Hasidic farbrengen, which takes place after the banquet Sunday evening. Again, you have thousands of rabbis coming together from all over the world, and they celebrate together to sit down and buy farbrengen on Sunday evening following the banquet. This year, they decided to start the farbrengen virtually on Zoom, Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night, and they would have everyone can attend this Zoom farbrengen. Now, Zoom only allows, per Zoom meeting, about 1,000 people in the enterprise edition of Zoom. And obviously, the farbrengen, because you have thousands of rabbis from all over the world, quickly filled up very, very quickly. And they thought it would be for a few hours, but lo and behold, history was made. It ended up becoming the longest Zoom meeting by far in history. And the farbrengen went from Saturday night till late Thursday evening. Straight, because you have to understand there's Chabad rabbis all over the world. So when one group, let's say from North America, would be going to sleep, then Australia, Europe, other places would be waking up and, continue the farbrengen. And it went on for days and days and days. And it wasn't just quantity, the quality was rich. It was incredible. You had great rabbis saying very, very illuminating and inspiring stories and uplifting words of Torah, and it was truly incredible. One of the stories that I heard, I was, going in and out of the meeting, of the farbrengen, and one of the stories I heard during the week was a powerful story of the Rebbe that one of the Chabad rabbis told over. There was a shliach who met an Israeli gentleman in New York years ago. I think it was in the 80s. And I think maybe it may have been in a restaurant. But he saw that the Israeli gentleman had a picture of the Rebbe in his wallet. And so he asked him, it's very interesting that you have a picture of the Rebbe. You carry around a picture of the Rebbe. So the Israeli gentleman tells the rabbi, without the Rebbe, I would have nothing. So he said, okay, tell me the story. What are you referring to? So he said years ago, when he got to New York, he was struggling terribly financially, and nothing worked. And one thing to the next, and debt started accruing, and he was having struggle paying for his rent. He was struggling, just covering his bills, and one thing led to the next, and it was getting really, really bad. He sat down, he says, and he wrote 100 letters to Jewish leaders, heads of organizations, rabbis. He said 100 letters describing his situation, asking for help. He says that nobody responded to his letter, except for the Rebbe. The Rebbe responded to his letter and gave him blessings that it's going to be good, he's going to have a lot of success. And enclosed with the letter was a $50 check. And he says he got the letter and he was furious. He said, I'm pouring out my heart, I'm saying I have no livelihood, and here I get a $50 check. What can I do with $50? $50 nowadays pays for one dinner, and in the 80s, fine, it paid for two dinners. But how does this help me? He took the letter and he took the check and he put it into a drawer, and he was upset. A couple of weeks went by, and his situation was worsening, and so he needed to use the money. He needed even that $50. So he reached deep into the drawer, took out the check, and he decides he's going to go to the bank and cash the check. He gets to the bank, and boom, he runs into an old friend of his from Israel, who he hadn't seen in years. And the friend looks at him and says, I was just thinking about you. I now live in New York, and I have, a man of means. He says he has multiple businesses. And he says, I was thinking about somebody to help coordinate my various business interests. And I kept on thinking about you. And I was thinking you're the perfect person that would be able to arrange this and orchestrate all my affairs. And I was thinking, I would love to get you involved. And I don't know where you were. I didn't have access. But now just as I'm thinking about you, here I meet you. Obviously, he ended up coming on board, working for him, and ended up growing his own business enterprise and was doing very well and very successful. And so that $50 check, which seemed that Rebbe directed him to the right path. And I think this is a very powerful story in general. It's a miracle story and an incredible story. But I think it actually has an incredible lesson to it too, which is sometimes in life we get the $50 checks. In other words, the situation where we feel like the letdown and that, what's going to be? It doesn't look so good. We have to realize the same way that Rebbe, in that story, was sending a $50 check, what looked in the onset that it wasn't the best thing ended up being the best thing. Because if it would have been a $1,000 check, it doesn't compare at all to guiding him to the direction of securing a job and a future, etc. Sometimes we get the $50 checks in situations that don't seem necessarily so positive. We have to realize that God has a lot more coming for us and a lot of good things coming for us. And our job is to trust, to have trust.